Yo, Fling here with your Week 13 NFL cash lineup review. All right, we're going to start with cash lineup. A couple cash lineups. I've actually been doing a little bit of split testing, just kind of testing my hand building process versus the domination station, and I've just felt like I have a little bit better of a feel on it versus the DS. So the first lineup I built is the one on the left, scored 137.68. Even with Justin Herbert, him bombing, this lineup, based on the head-to-heads I did, would have, won about 70% of them. So would have profited. Unfortunately, I used the DS lineup that it was generated this past week for the majority of my head-to-head. So ended up being a pretty bad cash week. In fact, this lineup did not hit a single win in head-to-heads this past week. So, going forward, probably going to stick to just more of hand building. I just think this has been a different year, and projections have not necessarily been the best for cash games. It's kind of just your feel on, what you think is going to happen on the slate. And, one of the, I guess, biggest differences between myself and the DS is I chose Zach Ertz as a little bit of a pay down from TJ Hawkinson. I really typically like to pay down at tight end. And, given that, I felt like it was a better game environment because Tennessee was actually pretty banged up in the secondary. And with TJ Hawkinson, they just have so many weapons in the offense to throw the ball to. They have Justin Jefferson. They have Jordan Addison. TJ Hawkinson isn't even the only tight end. So, Johnny Monk got the touchdown. If he got the touchdown, this is obviously a better week. So, yeah, I like the pay down options and hand building. I could force that a little bit more. In fact, I paid all the way down with Carolina. I just had a feel that, they're playing a little bit better defensively. So playing all the way down to Carolina and doing Zach Ertz, that allowed me to jam Kyren Williams in there, who I really loved in cash this weekend. And also allowed me to get the two top owned guys of Kamara and Chase Brown. And overall, this was a really balanced lineup. I had Puka Nacua, I had McConkey, David Moore was my only, kind of real punt at wide receiver. And I didn't have to punt it at running back, didn't have to play Gus Edwards. So I really liked this cash lineup that I went with. And like I said, it would have, won about 70% of my head-to-heads based on the math I did from seeing what this lineup did versus all those head-to-heads. So the biggest difference between the two lineups is the Chuba Hubbard play, obviously, and Kyren Williams. So it's a 2 versus 2 of going from Chuba and Kyren Williams, and really was a 3 versus 3 to Ertz and Hawkinson. So Kyren, Ertz, and Panthers versus Chuba, Hawkinson, and Colts D. And that was the biggest difference. Obviously, Hawkinson bombed. Brian Thomas Jr., this was a good projected lineup. Brian Thomas Jr., I like the play with Lawrence being back. In fact, might have won quite a few more cash lineups if Lawrence did not miss him for a wide open touchdown, because he was very close to having the 30-point day. But he did good. Moore did good. Puka Nacua did good. Moore did good for 3,500, almost 3x the salary. Pretty good stuff. Chase Brown. It was just the Chuba Hubbard and the Herbert and TJ Hawkinson that really bombed on this lineup. But, we'll look at the chalkboard here and just kind of review everything. The reason we play Justin Herbert is because he was projected as the highest owned guy. And, the ownership was just a little too low on Lamar, who was a guy that I liked. Had him on my cheat sheet as well, but he wasn't getting any ownership. So felt like there was some safety there in playing Justin Herbert going against the seventh. A team has given up the 7th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Obviously, terrible day for Herbert. He was nowhere near getting there. Anthony Richardson would have been the second highest owned guy. And, consider him a high variance player as well, but he has more of a rushing floor. So he definitely got there a little bit better. And then Jaden Daniels, he looks to be healthy. So I think he's back in cash consideration for us. Even at low ownership, he has that kind of floor that we are looking for. At running back, it was pretty clear. It was Alvin Kamara. It was Chase Brown as the top guys. Bijan as well. He was in a good spot. And then Kyren, Chuba Hubbard, was really kind of as low as I wanted to go. I loved Bucky Irving in tournaments. I had a ton of him. Just he's more of a timeshare, so it was really hard to predict what kind of volume he's going to get from week to week. And Chuba Hubbard was kind of the last guy we had, playable based on ownership, but clearly all the touchdowns went to the pass catchers in that game. So really bad game for Chuba. He had a fumble. They started to play Jonathan Brooks more in that game. So definitely something that, I think we're probably out on him in cash unless it's, his price drops a little bit, and it's a really good matchup for Chuba Hubbard, and they project as favorites. And at wide receiver, a lot of the guys that you saw on my, you'll see on my cheat sheet and you saw in my lineup, was based on what we saw on the chalkboard. So Puka Nacua, T. Higgins was in play at 6,600, David Moore, Brian Thomas Jr., Lad McConkey, Mike Evans. These were all guys that projected well, either from projection or fantasy points per dollar standpoint, as we're trying to piece together a lineup. And also we're getting good ownership. And then, TJ Hawkinson was the highest owned guy, but really Zach Ertz was a better play. And so really was Dallas Goedert once we knew that Devonta Smith was going to be out. So go ahead to the cheat sheet. I actually had listed Lamar as the top play, and I changed it once his ownership never really went up, and kind of tinkered a little bit too much. Wish I had stayed with that because he got 25 points. So he was really the better play. And if you were hand building and you went with Lamar and you avoided Chuba, you probably had a pretty decent day. Kamara certainly good enough for cash. Same with Bijan. Same with Kyren Williams. Chuba Hubbard bombed. Chase Brown was good. And then Gus was a guy that, I really didn't want to get to. In fact, he didn't make either of these lineups. But, I did think he was viable if and only if you were going to play a guy like Nico Collins and Puka Nacua in the same lineup is kind of, as opposed to the David Moore, like you went with Gus and you had Nico and Puka because they both projected so well. Love the spots for them. T. Higgins did enough for cash. McConkey smashed. Really did well at wide receiver this week for the cheat sheet and cash. And, Brian Thomas did well as well. And so did David Moore. Almost 3x the salary at 3,500. Had Hawkinson as the highest owned guy who projected well, but did prefer Zach Ertz in cash. If you were hand building, you weren't using the optimizer, this definitely was the play. And then, it's always pay downs. So, guys we look for are, defenses in good matchups that project well from fantasy points per dollar. Maybe they're going against a rookie quarterback like the Colts were. The Jets going against Geno, and really the offensive line that it struggles. And then the Patriots going against Indy. We know Richardson could turn the ball over. So just looking at the pay down options for tight end and defense is really what you want to do most weeks for cash. So it'll lead you down the right path. So that's going to do it for the week 13 cash lineup review. If you like this kind of content, let us know. Hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and stay tuned as we have a lot more content coming your way, starting with the first look tomorrow. We'll see y'all next time.